Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're doing good. Okay, so today I'll be showing you how I drafted this half scale bodice pattern. Okay, because we'll be making use of this pattern in the coming weeks, right? So I wouldn't like to refer to a basic bodice pattern when I've not shown you how I draft mine. All right, so guys, if you have not subscribed to my channel, please subscribe and please turn on the notification bell so that you don't miss on any tutorial. All right, so guys, before I start, I would like to show you some of the measurements that I'll be referring to on my mannequin. All right, don't worry guys, I'm not going to bore you with how to take measurements, right? But there are just a few things that I'll be referring to while drafting, and I want you to see them first. Come along. Before you start to measure your client, it is advisable that you locate your client's waist and you tie something around it, okay, so that you don't get your measurements wrongly. All right. Secondly, I want you to see that the distance between your client's shoulder and her front waist is often more than the distance between our shoulder and our back waist. All right, and the reason for that is because of the bust. Okay, for the front of my mannequin I measured 17, and for her back I measured 14. Okay, and that was because of the bust, so the difference is 3 inches, and that 3 inches will be converting that into a dart when we start to draft. Okay, thirdly, our back is not flat. Okay, it is not straight, just like it is on this mannequin. It is curved inward. Okay, so because of that space, yeah, we'll be making some alterations to the back of the pattern when we are drafting. Okay, so that when we sew her clothes, yeah, our zip can stay flat on her back. Okay, you remember we did something like that when we were drafting a pattern for the skirt, right? Yeah, so we'll be doing the same thing for this bodice pattern. Another thing I want to show you is how to take measurements for the arm side. Okay, so from your shoulder round to your armpit, okay, through to the other side is your arm side. All right, so this measurement is actually useful when you want to get your chest line and also when you want to draft your armhole. Okay, the next thing we're going to talk about is the shoulder slant. Okay, you know, most times when we are drafting, we'll slant the shoulder by 1. Okay, so now this is how we got the 1. All right, if you put a straight ruler on the base of your neck this way, you see, that's enough to tell you that our shoulder is not straight. Okay, you see that space between the ruler and the shoulder. Okay, so now if you measure that space, on the average we have 1 inch. Okay, and that is why we usually depress the shoulder by 1. Okay, can you see this? So usually for men, their shoulders are more slanted, so for a man it could be 2 inches, 2.5. okay, so you just need to measure, or you just use the standard measurements, okay, which is 1 for women, and for men it is between 2 and 2.5 inch. Okay, the final thing I would like to show you is why we use 3 inches for the neck width. Okay, that's actually standard. You can alter it, you can make it lower than 3 inches, and you can make it more. Okay, you know that already, yeah. But then if you should measure from the base of your neck from one side to the other, you see this is about 6 inches, yeah. So if you divide that by 2, that is 3 inches. Okay, so that's about all I'm going to show you on the mannequin today. Okay, and I'm very sure that this tutorial will be very clear when you watch it. Okay, so now let's start drafting. So I'll be drafting my back pattern first. All right, you can start with the front. Okay, it doesn't really matter. All right, okay, so I started off by drawing a baseline, which is that top line. Okay, and after then I measured the distance between my shoulder and my back waist. Okay, mine is 15, so from the baseline to this line is 15 inches. All right, so the next thing I did was to create the zipper allowance. All right, you know it is the back. Okay, so here I used 1.5 inches. Okay, so from the edge of my paper I measured 1.5 inch inward. Okay, and then I drew that into a straight line. Okay, so now after that let's go to the neckline. All right, The neck width I'll be using for this pattern is 3 inches. Okay, remember what we did on the mannequin. All right, so yeah, I'm using 3 inches for the neck width. Okay, and I'm also measuring my shoulder width. Okay, my shoulder divided by 2 is 7.5. okay, my shoulder is 15 divided by 2, that is 7.5. okay, so now to get my chest line, okay, my chest line is my arm side divided by 2. My arm side is 17 inches. Okay, 17 inches divided by 2, that is 8.5. okay, so from the shoulder line I'm measuring down 8.5. okay, and then I'll be drawing that into a straight line as well. Mind you guys, the chest line is different from the bust point line. Okay, the bust point line is also the apex line. All right, the chest line is usually higher than the bust point line, okay, on the pattern. Okay, but because this is the back pattern, we won't be needing the bust point line. Okay, so in preparation for constructing the armhole, I'll be marking my shoulder measurement on my bust line. Okay, remember that 7.5 that I marked on my shoulder line. Okay, I'll be marking the same thing and then I will draw it into a straight line. So now let's go to the bust measurement. Okay, I'll be taking my bust measurement right on the chest line. Okay, so my bust measurement is 34 divided by 4, that is 8.5. okay, so I'm marking 8.5 right there, 8.5 inches on the chest line. All right, so now let us create the dart. Okay, like we all know, the dart is used for shaping and contouring of fabrics on the body. Okay, so to get the point where you're going to create your dart, okay, you know the distance between your nipple to nipple divided by 2. all right, mine is 7 divided by 2, that's 3.5. all right, so I measured from my zipper line inward. Okay, 3.5 inches for my zipper line inward. Okay, and then I drew it into a straight line. Okay, so to create the dart, I measured ½ an inch on both sides of the dart line. Okay, so from the chest line as well, I'll be coming down by 1 inch. Okay, because we don't want the dart to go into the back. Okay, we don't want it to go high up into the back. All right, so from that 1 inch, okay, I'll be connecting it to those 2 points that I made earlier. Okay, and now that is formed. Okay, so the next thing I'll be doing is to measure my waist. Okay, my waist is 29 divided by 4, that is 7.25. but remember that my dart is 1 inch in total, that is ½ inch on both sides. Okay, so I'll be adding 1 inch to 7.25, and that is 8.25. okay, which is what I'm marking right there. Okay, so now I'll be connecting my bust measurement, okay, to my waist measurement. So to construct the armhole, the first thing I'll be doing is to create the shoulder slant. Okay, so I'll be coming down by 1 inch from the shoulder line. Okay, and then I'll be connecting it to the base of the neck width of 3 inches that I measured earlier. All right, then I'll be measuring the distance between that shoulder slant and my chest line. Okay, mine is 7.5. okay, and then I'll find the midpoint. The midpoint is 3.25. okay, so now I'll be connecting that midpoint to my bust measurement. Okay, which is what I did there. So now to the neck. Okay, since it is for the back, okay, the neck depth I'll be using is 1 inch. Okay, remember you can alter this to suit whatever kind of style that you want to sew. Okay, so now let us move to the back. In order to make the zipper lay flat on our back, okay, we'll be going in by 0.5 inch. Okay, so from that zipper allowance here, I'll go in by 0.5 inch, and then I'll connect it to a point that is about 3 inches above the chest line. Okay, so now we have created the slant for the back. Okay, so the next thing I'll be doing is to remeasure the zipper allowance. Okay, so you'll be remeasuring your zipper allowance from that new line. All right, measure whatever your zipper allowance is, and then you remeasure it from that new line. Okay, from the waist to the shoulder. Okay, so after doing that, the next thing I'll be doing is to add same allowances all around my pattern. Okay, I think I'll be cutting out the seam allowance later, but then just to show you how to add your seam allowance, I'll be doing this. So now to construct the front pattern, I'll be using the other side of the paper. So first I'm going to draw a reference line, okay, and that is where I'm going to start my measurements from. Now I'm going to start off by measuring my front waist length. So from my shoulder to my front waist is 16, okay, and that is what I'm marking there, and I'm going to draw it into a straight line. So the next thing I'm going to do is to create my neck width and my shoulder line. Okay, so I'm using a neck width of 3 inches and my shoulder line of 7.5 inches. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to input on this pattern is my chest line, okay, which is my arm side divided by 2. All right, and that is 8.5, and I'm going to draw that into a straight line. Okay, so for the front we'll be needing our bust line as well. Okay, so now I'm marking my bust line from my shoulder to my apex is 9 inches, and that is what I marked right there. Okay, so the next thing I'll be doing is to input my bust measurement on my chest line. Okay, so my bust measurement is 34 divided by 4, just like we did for the front, right? 34 divided by 4 is 8.5. okay, and that is what I marked right there, right? Okay, so now for my darts, just like we did for the back, I'll be measuring 3.5 inches inward, okay, from my center front line, okay, and then I'm going to draw that into a straight line. Okay, and after that I'll be coming down from the bust line. Okay, you see I stopped at the bust line, yeah, so I'll be coming down from the bust line by 1 inch, okay, and then I'll be creating my dart legs as well, 0.5 inch on both sides, and then I'll be drawing my dart. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is to connect my waist to my bust line. Okay, I've already measured out my waist, okay, and I've added the 1 inch allowance as well, okay, the 1 inch for the darts. All right, so the next thing I'll be doing is to incorporate the difference between my shoulder to front waist and my shoulder to back waist, okay, into the pattern. Okay, so my shoulder to front waist is 16, my shoulder to back waist is 15 inches. Okay, so like I showed you on the mannequin, we'll be using that difference to form a dart at the front, okay, so that we can create more room for our bust. Okay, you know, the difference was actually caused by the bust. Okay, so from the bust line, okay, I marked 2 inches down here, and then I'm going to connect that 2 inch mark to my apex point. Okay, so on both sides of this line I'm going to measure half of my difference. Okay, you know my difference is 1, 16 minus 15 is 1. Okay, so I'm going to measure ½ inch on both sides. All right, and then I'll be connecting it to my apex point. Okay, but before that I'm going to come inward from the apex point. Okay, still on that line I'll be coming inward by 1 inch. Okay, the reason is that we don't want the dart to get to our apex. Okay, if we do that the cloth is going to look funny. All right, so what I'm going to do is to measure ½ inch on both sides of that line. All right, and then I'll be connecting it to that 1 inch mark. Okay, if the difference between your front and your back waist length is like 3, you measure 1.5 inch on both sides of the line. Okay, and then you connect it to the 1 inch mark. So to construct my armhole for the front, okay, just like we did for the back, I'll be marking my shoulder measurement on my chest line. Okay, my shoulder measurement is 7.5, and then I'm going to draw that into a straight line. Afterwards I'm going to come down by 1 inch, okay, from the shoulder line. Okay, and that is going to be our shoulder slant. After then I'm going to get the midpoint between my shoulder line and my chest line. Okay, that is 3.5. So on that midpoint I'll be going in by ½ an inch. Okay, because the armhole for the front is usually deeper than that of the back, and that was why I marked half an inch inward. Okay, so now I'll be connecting those 3 points together: the tape of the shoulder, the midpoint, and then the bust measurement. Okay, did you see what I did there? So now let us go to the neckline. Okay, I'll be using a neck depth of 3 inches. Remember, you can alter that to suit whatever you want to sew. Okay, and that will be all for the front pattern. All right, so one thing I want you to know is this: you see that the length of the front pattern is longer, okay, is more than that of the back pattern. Okay, and that is because of the bust dart. Okay, so by the time we take that dart in, by the time we sew the dart, okay, like we would normally do our waist dart, okay, it will become the same length. Okay, and when it becomes the same length, it creates more room for your bust. Okay, and one other thing I want you to know is this: you can transfer the dart to anywhere. Okay, you can transfer it to your shoulder, you can transfer it back to your waist dart. Okay, you can transfer it to your armhole or any part that you want the dart to be. Okay, it doesn't necessarily have to be on that side of your body. Okay, so now I'll be adding seam allowances round the pattern. Okay, and then I'll cut it. Okay, remember the front pattern is usually on fold. Okay, most times it is on fold. Okay, so I won't be adding any seam allowance to the front, to the center front. So guys, these are the patterns, both the front and the back half scale bodies. Okay, and we'll be using it in the coming weeks. All right, thank you very much for watching this tutorial. You can share, like, and then put your comments in the comment section. Okay, if you have any questions too, you can ask. I'll definitely attend to them. Okay, thank you for watching once again. Please subscribe to my channel. See you next time. Bye.